Okay guys, welcome to the latest full build video. It's been a little while since I did one of these. I'd like to do one of these for every build, but it's kind of time consuming to produce one of these compared to the amount of time I actually have to do these builds for customers. But I like to do one every couple of months so I can post one on my ads for reference so people can get an idea of what they're currently getting from me when it comes to the type of builds I'm doing. This is one of the nicer builds that I've actually ever put together for the purpose of selling. Usually these higher end builds, I only do them for myself and my friends, but the parts have started to come down on price, and it's getting to the point where I can actually do these at a price that buyers are willing to pay for these systems on the secondary market. So this build that we're going to do today is going to be an X99 based i7 5930K. It's going to have 16 gigs of DDR4 RAM, and the video card on this is going to be a Gigabyte Aorus Extreme GTX 1080 Ti. We're working in a Fractal Design R4 case. Pretty decent case. It's not the absolute highest end, but I would call it generic high-end case. It basically checks all the boxes. There's nothing really memorable about it. It doesn't even have a side panel window, but it checks all the boxes. It's got lots of fan. You can see all these cutouts here. You can mount fans to all of that. I think, what do we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think 7? 700? Yeah, they're all set up for 140 mil too. So 740 mil fan mounts, which is pretty beefy. It's not quite super case status, but it's pretty beefy. Trying to think what else we have of relevance. CPU cooler on this one is fairly run of the mill. I guess they don't do an Intel stock. I guess X99, I don't think they had an Intel stock cooler, but it's fairly run-of-the-mill aftermarket. It's the common Cooler Master Hyper 212 EVO. A lot of people consider it to be a pretty darn good cooler, but I consider it to be kind of generic upper mid-range cooler, that kind of thing. Trying to think. We're going to do a fairly extensive storage system on this. We're going to be doing a 500 gig SSD, 500 gig fairly high performance hard drive, and a 2 terabyte blah storage drive. So it'll have a fairly extensive storage system. Trying to think what else we're doing with this. We are going to be doing a 750 watt. I think I got a Seasonic. What we got here? Seasonic 750 watt, 80 plus gold. Pretty decent, decent power supply. So let's get started on this build. Just a second here. Pause button. Scammer calls. Don't we all love them? Okay, so let's get started with this. Man, I thought there was a pause button on here. Where the heck did that thing go? Interesting. Yeah, whatever. Okay, so usually the very first thing I do, and by the way, this case is it's gutted essentially. So I've pulled all the panels off, front panel. I've pulled all the fans out of it. It's just the bare metal of the case, and that's to make it a little bit easier to work with. Let's see here. Usually the first thing I do with these is I put the I/O shield in. And then I put in the motherboard. And one of the things that a lot of people don't think about, especially when you're dealing with secondhand cases, always check your screws. There are two different screw sizes. There's small diameter screws and there are high diameter screws. The small ones are what you would find on laptop hard drives or optical drives, for whatever reason, use the smaller size. And then usually the larger size you'll see on like 3.5 hard drives, things like that. So I would always recommend testing your screws to make sure that you don't put it in and then you can't get your screws to work because you've got either too loose or too tight, and then that causes problems. I get a lot of issues with that. Okay, so let's put this thing in. And you just want to make sure that all the screws line up so you can actually put them in. And this particular, where are my screws? There they are. Okay, this particular case came with standoffs that take the smaller sized screws. I think the larger ones are a little more common, but I could be wrong on that. Full ATX boards typically have 9 screw mounts, and you want to use all of them. And always make sure you have actually installed the standoffs. I have actually seen people try to screw motherboards straight in there. That happens. I grabbed a screw that was a little bit too, it was the larger diameter screw. I have actually seen people destroy brand new parts by screwing motherboards straight to the metal of the case and then going to turn them on. The likelihood is very high that if you do this, you will destroy your motherboard. So make sure you have the standoffs properly installed before you go about doing that. Okay. Fortunately, I have a little bit of a limit on lighting here. If I can get this, we can actually... there we go. That might be a little better. Not much, but... Okay. Now you can kind of see where I'm going here. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do on this one is the heatsink. Let's see what we got. I think I had, what am I going to do? Arctic Silver 5, good trusty. So I'm going to do, because it's a larger chip, I'm going to use several blobs of it, and then I'm going to spread them out with my finger. I'm sure someone's going to tell me, oh my god, you need to use the spreader that comes with it. One of the things you can do with this to make this a little bit easier, if you have the system ready to power up, and don't do this if you don't know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, do this the normal way, but if you really know what you're doing and you're experienced, sometimes one of the ways to do this is to turn on the machine for just 20, 25, 30 seconds. Let the CPU heat up just a little, and that makes the CPU compound a little bit easier to spread. Anyone that knows what they're doing knows how long you can get away with an heat-sinked CPU. So again, only do that if you know what you're doing. But little tip I sometimes, little technique I sometimes use. Okay, let's wipe that off real fast. You always want to use a towel that you might hear some bumping for a second. I gotta move my mic here. I didn't realize it was where it was. Okay. Yeah, you always want to keep a towel that's here specifically for thermal paste so you don't destroy a bunch of towels. Okay, so let's put our heatsink on. So this is a little bit unusual of a process. Most CPUs have a more complicated bracket setup that you have to do for an aftermarket, or at least non-Intel setup. The X99 platform has integrated, what do you call it? Has integrated threading that's built into the socket itself. And as a general rule, most manufacturers that build heat sinks for this use the integrated threading that's already there. I haven't done a lot of X99 builds just because I don't see as many of them as I see like Z170, Z270, or even older like Z87, Z97 type stuff. But yeah, typically, even if you've got a liquid cooler, the bracket for that is going to screw straight to the Intel socket, so you're not going to have to put a back plate around back behind the motherboard. Okay, so there is that, and on this one, I'm going to wait on the CPU fan. I may end up using a non-original fan. I may end up putting like a Noctua or maybe a Corsair fan or something on there. The Cooler Master ones aren't always the best fan. The heatsink's great, but the fans themselves can sometimes do a little better, so I'm going to leave that off for now. So the next thing we're going to do is our power supply. Everybody has their own opinions on this, but I always do fan down so it can suck air into the power supply from the bottom. If you're in a situation where the computer is going to be flat on carpet, that could be less than ideal. It's not going to... Typically it's not going to be that big of a deal, but just be careful with it. And even then, it's only going to it would only ever be a problem if you had like really deep, shaggy carpet. Then you could potentially have a cooling issue, but... And turn this around so you can see what I'm doing here. So I'm just screwing into the bottom. Let's see here. Power supplies are generally going to be 4 screws. Do not cheap out. Just install all 4 screws. Just do it. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do with this, that I like to do with my builds, fortunately the camera isn't the perfect angle here, but so I like to do, let's see, I'm going to have to move the camera back for a second. That didn't work. Okay, let's see if I can figure out how to get this the right angle. Oops. That's what a side panel sounds like when it falls against the floor. Okay, so what I like to do is pull all. So most of the cases that I use now are gaming grade, shall we say. They're enthusiast grade cases. So they pretty much all have, except for the oldest ones I use, typically they're going to have a pass-through right in front of the power supply, and I usually do that first. So I feed all the cables around back. And on this one, the first cable I'm going to run is going to be this guy up here. That's your Motherboard 8 pin. So let's do that first. Where are we? So usually on enthusiast cases, usually there's going to be a pass-through up towards the top corner. So this one has one right here that you can see. We pass the cable through there. Let's make that Y as, let's make that Y flat. Okay. So we now have that lying flat. And then we flip it back around again. And I mean, it's kind of not the easiest to see, but grab this. Oh, that's actually, you know what? Oh, they used slightly different positioning on the 8 pin. This motherboard is towards the center of the board, the top center of the board. So I am going to pull that back out and put it in the center one. And then, so your Motherboard 8 pin has, see if I can put that on camera, see if I can get it close here. See if I can get that. There we go. Okay, so your Motherboard 8 pin has these two locking clips. You want to make sure if you look at the 8 pin plug, it's kind of invisible here in this. It's right there, but you can see the whatever you call it, the locking mechanism on it, and you can see it. You just want to make sure that you face that properly. Otherwise, it's going to be impossible to get this in. I would definitely recommend doing these long before you have all the components and stuff installed. It just makes it easier to work with. And some of these heatsinks are actually kind of dangerous. I have lost some blood definitely on these kind of things, especially like if you have any force behind your hand and you slip along it. Oh yeah, you can do some pretty severe damage. Okay, so let's flip back around to the other side. And you just want to grab, because you want that to be tight if possible. And I will probably zip tie that to something else once I get the rest of these in. So the next one we're going to do, let's see, where is it on this one? Can I see it? It looks like it's right there. So the motherboard 24 pin on this one is a little towards the top. So I'm going to pass through here. There we go. So you can see me doing that. So then we flip it back over again. Yeah, that's definitely towards the top. Usually they're closer to the center here. It's probably because of 10 SATA ports. That's one of the cool features about X99 boards is the number of SATA ports. Most boards, low-end boards, you typically get 4. Mid and upper mid-range boards, you usually get 6. And really upper mid-range boards, sometimes you'll get 8. Sometimes lower high-end boards, you'll get 8. And then on the very, very highest end boards, you'll get 10, or I've even seen more than 10. I think 12. I think Asrock, actually, the company that makes this board, has a board with, I think, 18 of them for this socket. It's the Asrock. What the hell is that thing? The Asrock, the Extreme 9, I think. The X99 Extreme 9. Okay, so the way I'm going to do this, there aren't any... So I'm going to make cable ties, actually, or cable tie-down areas. So what I'm going to do... Let's stuff out of the way. So this is a trick I've learned. It's one of my newer tricks, actually. This is one of those reasons why I like to show newer builds. It's kind of a creative way to do this, to create. So when you have a situation like this where you don't have anything to tie down to, what I do is this. I take some zip ties, I run them through, and then we attach another one. You can see the thing there. Attach another one like this. Gosh darn it. There we go. Okay, so you do that, and then you take it, you do this, and now what you can do is you can use this as a tie down. So you just cut, and I might do a couple of these. So you cut that. And the cool thing with this is if the case can allow it, one of the things that this lets you do is if you want to make your own tie-down locations for something like this, you could drill holes and do it that way. But I don't like drilling holes in metal cases. I feel like it's a pretty big concern as far as metal shavings. You really don't want metal shavings floating around where they can fall onto your board. If you've got the case, the thing is, you're only going to know where you need them after you have the system partly assembled like this. So to do it safely, you'd have to rip the whole thing back apart, do your holes, make really certain that you've cleaned everything up, and then put it all back together again, which I think this is an easier way to do it. So this also has a bunch of random holes here. I don't know what these are originally for. They may just be there for doing stuff like this, but... So let's do one more here. Let's actually do... let's do this. One more right there. Okay, so then... Just keep that out of the way. So same thing we did last time. Most newer cases do a really good job with having cable pass-throughs, so these holes for cables to go through, with nice grommets and stuff, but a lot of even newer cases, don't do the best job with their tie-down locations. So that is why I do that. So what we're going to do here, let's see. Okay, that'll work perfectly. So we will zip tie these two right here to that. And that lets us hold those nice and flat against the case. And then we'll zip tie this one right here up towards the top. And if anyone's getting bored at this point, I just want to make it clear, these type videos are not really intended for my YouTube audience. I hope some of you guys find this interesting to see how I do this, but these type videos are really intended for my local audience of buyers who are actually going to see the systems, who are actually going to buy systems from me. That's really what these are for. So do keep that in mind before you leave a comment on how boring this is. This is so my local buyers can actually watch my build process start to finish and judge me according to that. It's not to bore you guys. So let's this one tie right there. Friend of mine once saw one of my builds and thought my cable tie usage was excessive, to say the least. I am a very I like my cables to be very clean. And then let's see here. Let's do one there. Can we do that? No. Let's do this. Let's do it right there. I wish there was another. Let's see. Another hole? Ooh, there is a hole. Let's do this. Oh, yeah. Okay, so we can do another one of these. There's another hole down here. What the heck is that thing? It's not coming out where I want it. Oh, there we go. Okay. So this is going to let it stay. This is going to keep this nice and tight against the motherboard tray. There we go. Look at that. Yes. Okay. One more right there, and we will call our main a day. So another trick that you can do with this is once you have your two main cables tied in like this, you can actually tie other cabling to this one main kind of run of cables, and it keeps it all kind of compact. Do be aware, I've had this happen before where I've done the cabling a little too tight, and I have had issues where I guess it's crushed them or they were already partly damaged and it shorted, that kind of thing. So do be aware. I have had situations where I've finished the cable setup and then the computer won't turn on. And it's usually pretty obvious that it's a power related issue too. So do be careful with that. Okay, what is next here? Let's do... Okay, that is PCIe. So let's run... We do 1, 2, 3. So we'll do all of the drives that I'm installing in this bottom set of drive bays. This will be just an available extra for fans or other power. So let's do... Typically, video card's going to be right here. So let's run this out here. Okay. On these flat cables, you can kind of do these bends like this. Normal round ones, obviously you can't, but the only thing that sucks is it's a little harder to tie them down because you can't tie them down flat quite the same. Let's flip that back over. And let's put our video card in. This is an absolute monster of a video card. Yeah, you can see. Hopefully that fits. Oh crap! I hope that actually fits. Well, I guess these are okay. It does fit. Cool. I guess the R4 is modular, so if that was an issue, I could have pulled this set of drive bays out since we are doing a full. Dang it! Since we are doing a full drive assortment for this buyer. We don't have the problem where he won't be able to upgrade drives because he's not really going to need to upgrade drives. A good number of the builds I do are fairly slim on storage, so kind of my default storage option for everything up to about $500. Purchase value is a 240 SSD and a 500 gig drive. So, oh wait, this has thumb screws. So let's actually, these might not be the exact same as thumb screws, but well, they might be. Let's see here. Let's put that in. There will be some card sag on this. There's not really a way around it. The only real, without using some rather exotic techniques, special built hardware, stuff like that, the only real solution I have seen actually was on a build I did a couple days ago where the hardware was mounted like in the case. The case was oriented like this, where the video card faced up and all the ports came out the top. And obviously that negates that problem because the video card would hang like that. That's the only good solution I've ever seen, to be honest. But I've been using this card for a while, and it's not really that big of a deal. I think I had it. I think I had it on my own X99 build for a while, and I think I may have also had it on my my i9 9900K build for a while too. It was a. So let's hook that up. So this card, this Aorus Extreme, does use 2 8-pin, which is the most you will normally see. I think you might see, like if you encounter like an EVGA, what is going on here? If you encounter like an EVGA, what do they call those things? The classified ones, you might see like 2 4s and a 3, or 2 8s and a 3, or maybe. I think I may have seen a couple of the new 3080s. I think those had 3 8-pins. But typically, most high-end cards, 2 8s is going to be the limit. Okay, get that in. Okay, coolness. It's kind of a little hard. This is one of those things I always hate, is trying to figure out how to... I don't like stuff sticking like that. That's stupid, but... Okay, so let's see. What do we got going on here? So we're going to look on the back. Okay, so let's actually... let's do this. We're going to put in 1 cable tie lower here. But I'm going to leave that cable loose up towards there. I don't normally, but... in this case, I'm not sure which SATA ports I'm going to be using, and I don't want it to get in the way of the SATA ports. And by leaving it loose, I'll be able to kind of push it out of the way of my SATA ports when I decide which ones to plug the drives into. Okay, so next we're going to find a way to... well, let's just shove them in here for now. That's fine. I just need them to stay there out of the way. until I put drives in to use with them. Okay, so we're going to do... So I do keep 2 sizes of zip ties on hand. And I'm going to run a zip tie through here to hold this down. I consider my builds to be... Every single build is an advancement of the art of zip tie usage. I use a lot of zip ties on my builds. So let's... What do we want to do next here? Video card is in. Heatsink's in. Let's let's put our RAM in. Do that next. Okay, so on this one, we're going to be using... When I did my testing, it didn't give me any messages complaining about it needing to be in a different slot or something. So we're going to use the 2 furthest over. And that actually has a utilitarian effect as well. There's a functional reason for that, which is that the almost all of the DDR4, unless you get like maybe the Corsair LPX, but most of the DDR4 you run into is going to have a reasonably tall heatsink. And so you're definitely going to want to, if you've got a board like this and you can use the side that's not next to the fan, you kind of want to. Okay, so that's installed. And I think we're going to do our storage run next. Just checking for... Gotta always be looking for parts. Okay, so I'm trying to think how I even set this up initially. Let's just put them in the caddies first and then figure out how to do the setup later. So first we're going to, where's my SSD? There you are. So these use the smaller sized screws to screw into the SSD, not the larger sized ones like the hard drives. Pretty much every newer case made within the last, I don't know, 5 years that you've come across is going to have mounting for 2.5. So mainly SSDs, some laptop drives, but 2.5 SSDs mainly. Okay, so that's our 500 gig. I think it's a Samsung 850 EVO. Is it 850 Pro? I didn't even look. It's a EVO or a Pro. EVO Pro? Alright. Okay, so drop that in. Now let me reach down here and grab my other hard drives down here. Let's see here. So the drive, the reason I'm putting the 500 in is that has a couple reasons for it. One, it's a higher performance Seagate Barracuda. Even though it's a small drive, it's a fairly new drive. And that's actually for a couple of things. One of the main things for that is for the buyer to put their games on, and not have them on their storage. But the other reason is for me to load all my my test games on. So all the games that I put on there for buyers to test. I am back, continuing on with the X99 i7 5930K build. My camera cut out, but nothing important was missed. I think I missed one of the SATA plugs on one of the storage devices. That was about the only thing I missed. In the meantime, though, I did reconnect the front panel with all the front panel plugs and everything. So we're gonna get along with that next. So we are gonna flip this over. And on the back here, we have all our front panel connectors. The first one I'm going to do is the biggest, heaviest of them all. And let's back up here. There we go. Make that a little easier to see what I'm doing. So, the biggest one of these is the USB 3.0 plug. I try to hide these so they're not visible in this space here when you look in. So I'm going to run it. Let's see, how do I do that? Can I get it under there? Yes, I think we can. Okay, I think we got it. Oh, there we go. Okay, cool. So I'm going to run that underneath there. And then it's going to come out. Looks like those are right. Oh, where are they? I got to flip it over again to look. Oh, they're side by side. Interesting. Okay, so I'm gonna run that out. The power next to the power here. Run that way. So flip it back over. And then you'll see inside here. Let me see if I gotta zoom in again here. Let's see here. Trying to make that as visible as possible. Okay, so I think you can kind of see those. Zoom in a little. There we go. Oh, there we go. Okay, so our two USB 3.0 motherboard plugs. Should be able to, oops, zoom in a little more there. So that's those two guys. Let's see if I can get some. There we go. Oh, it's trying to focus on the heatsink. That's the problem. Okay, let's do that. Okay, there we go. Okay, that's what I wanted. So those are the USB 3s. You gotta be really careful with these. These are actually really fragile. You'll see pretty much everyone that does builds on videos talking about this. It's very easy to break them. You gotta make sure to line up the... I can get that visible properly. So there's a non-functional tab right there that doesn't have anything in it that's solid. You want to line that up with the corner. Oh, you can see that. See if I can do it with a screwdriver. So one of the corners of each of these plugs, there. So right there and right there. You can't even see it on the video. It looks like there's a pin there, but there actually isn't. And you got to line that up. If you do it wrong, if you do it backwards, those pins are very fragile, and it's easy to crush the opposite corner if you do it wrong. So we're going to do the inner one. And the other thing with this is that this is really stupid. Every single one of these is this way. They're really heavy-duty, rigid cables, and so you got to be careful when you put it in not to bend anything. So we're going to push this back through. And we're actually going on this one. Let's see how much I can do of that. Okay, that's as much as I would want. So the way we're going to do this on this build, I'm going to zip tie those two together. The primary power and the USB 3. It's kind of a little bit out of focus. Let's see if I can get it back in focus here. Oh, come on. Help me out here, guys. See if I can get that thing out of the frame, and then that'll help. Is it going to do it? That thing does not want to focus on anything other than that heatsink. Gosh darn you. Let's try this. And this is the thing that sucks about being a one-man operation, is not being able to get these the way I want them. Try that. There we go. Okay, that's back in view again. So I'm going to run this around here. And one of the reasons for doing this is to make sure that it's a lot harder to accidentally grab and bend that plug. It's partly a cable management issue, but partly a functional issue of that plug being grabbed and damaged. So zip tie those two together, and that'll kind of keep that in place. Find my wire clippers here. Okay, then the next thing we're going to do, let's zoom back out here again. Oops, wrong one. Let's go all the way out. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do, let's flip this back over again. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to, let's see, let's just cable tie that like that. Frame there. And then get that out of the way. What the heck is going on there? Okay, there we go. So then we'll do, let's see, do I want to go that way? Yeah, let's do it that way. So we'll just tuck that right there, under there. Okay, then our next item is going to be our front panel audio connector. Now, I could be wrong on this. I didn't actually look, but typically it's always on the bottom outer corner by the output there. So let's, oops, there we go. Okay, so this is almost always in that corner. So I'm going to run that to the corner and flip it over and give it a 90% chance that that is there. So let's run that under there. And then I'm going to run this out here. And it's almost always in that corner right there, somewhere around there. There's a few boards that aren't, but as a general rule, that's where just about everyone puts your front panel audio connector. Let's see what we got, though. And I am correct. I've occasionally seen it up right around that area. And sometimes it'll be generally in this area, but in kind of a weirder place. But usually it's at the very corner of the board there, so it makes it easy to assume where it is. Ooh, and there we go. Okay. Back around, and then we hide the excess cabling from that. What do we want to do here? Let's see. Do I want to? Looks like I can just run it along there. Zip ties. Okay. So then we just attach it with zip ties to this. And that just keeps everything out of the way and clean. tuck it under the board? No, it's a little tight for going under the board. So, let's see here. Nah, there's no reason to. It's fine. It's not. I'd like it not to be like that, but it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to leave that one. And then we'll do one more here. Come on, let's go. Okay, so do that there. Okay, and then our next one is going to be regular front panel USB. Let's see here. And those are typically going to be right in that area. So we're going to run this. I'm going to go the same way again. Let's see, can I do that? Might be able to do it. No, it's a little too. Let's do this. Let's run this one under here as well. Run it down here. Run it under here. And then we can do this. We can put it in that corner there. Gonna bet dollars for days that that will put me right where I want to be. So let's flip us back over again. And check it out, right where we want to be. Okay, so the way I'm going to do this to hide these the best, let's see if I can get it so you can see it. Okay, so I'm going to hide these by pushing them under the power supply, that corner of the power supply, and then grabbing the cable and pushing it back right there. And then it plugs right in. And then the USB cable is almost completely hidden for a good clean look, so you don't have a bunch of cables running there. Okay, what are we doing next here? Probably, let's look and see here. Let's see what we got next. Okay, so we've got, looks like there's some sort of fan controller. I thought I put an optical drive in. I guess I didn't. Looks like we've got it. Oh, okay. Okay, so yeah, we do have a fan controller. Very simple, but it is a fan controller. So let's hide these out of the way here for now. If I even end up using that. I may not even end up using that. I may end up just using the board zone stuff, but we'll see in a minute. What is next? Okay, so power. So for this, so one of the things I like to do, let's run them through first. I guess these are actually kind of nice. And usually they're not like this. Usually they're just a single wire or two little wires connected to each other. But these ones are that, it looks like, but it's got some sort of sheathing on it, which is a nice touch. Let's do this. Let's run each of those. This is the difference between a high-quality build and just your average run-of-the-mill general build that somebody does, is the amount of effort that's put into this cable management. Very picky about this. I will say, though, the one downside of this kind of extensive cable management is that it does make it a lot easier to replace, for example, the power supply. If the power supply dies, you're going to have to cut most of those zip ties, which kind of sucks. I normally recommend that if that ever happens, that buyers just snip the cables at the power supply, just chop them right off, rip the power supply out. You could even go so far as to leave those cables in place and just chop it on each end. You could do that. But that's the one downside of this type of cable management, is it's similar to like when you look at systems like Alienware's, stuff like that, Dell builds, things like that. It's a little bit harder sometimes with how they run the cable management, similar to this, that if something needs to be replaced, that's the one downside. So, but hopefully that's not an issue here, because we did use a high quality power supply, so Seasonic is about as good as you can get. So let's run these under here. And then usually it's going to be in that corner right there, the far outer corner of the board. Let's start with this. Let's zip tie these. I don't like, no, I don't know where they all are. So let's just run them in first, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so push these out through there. And flip us back over again. Oh, I forgot to do that too. So we want to put that in the corner there. No one puts USB in the corner! Okay, that was dumb. Okay. Put that there. There. That'll keep that all nice and managed. Let's do one or two more here. Put one in the corner right there. Actually, what you could do with this one, if this power supply failed, this is probably a reasonably readily available model. You could actually order another identical power supply. I think. I guess I didn't look. I think this one is fully modular. Yeah, I think this one's fully modular. So you could, in theory, just pull the box, unscrew the box, unplug all the modulars, and then just slip the new box in, plug it all back in, and call it a day. Yeah, I don't like fully modular, but I never considered that. That's definitely a consideration. Ooh, I know how I'm going to do that. Okay, I know this is anal retentive. I got to do it. Okay, let's do this. We're going to do the same thing we did for all that other stuff. We are going... This is so stupid. I don't know why I'm so picky about this, but I am. Okay. So let's run that. In there. Look at that. Yes! Boom. Holds it nice in place. Look at that. Oh, yeah. This is what I call dedication, folks. Boom! Check that out. And then we can do this. Now that we've got that in place, we can do that. Actually, I should probably make sure I got my power cables the way I want them first. So let's flip it back over here. And where are we? Okay, so can you see that? Yeah, you can. Okay, cool. So we've got power. So on the standardized small size front panel connector, this is almost always set up the exact same way. Oh, it even has it marked. Ooh, okay. Nice. So reset is... A lot of these aren't marked, actually. It's kind of annoying. That one. And it looks like power plus. What do we got going on? Yep, okay, cool. So minus and plus. Okay. Probably shouldn't even connect this one, because then you get that. It's almost always a flashing blue light, a bright flashing blue light, which is really stupid. Whatever. It can be distracting. So one of the things I like to do, just for good cable management, is to zip tie these 3 together. And usually the last thing I do is fans, and the reason for that is I like to see what's needed. This build might actually not need very many of them. That card with that massive cooler on it in an unoverclocked state isn't that hot of a card, and the CPU, the X99 chips, my experience with them is that they're fairly cool running chips, especially with a decent cooler like the 212 EVO on it. They always seem to run pretty cool, at least from what I've seen. Someone can correct me if theirs is insanely hot at stock speed. This isn't really this really isn't an overclocker's build. You certainly could overclock it. It's a K chip, but this is not intended as an overclocker's build. And to be honest, the thing I find, and part of the reason why I don't actually actively seek out what was that? The reason I don't actively seek out K chips is because I find that the majority of my buyers, while they like the idea of a build that you can say, yeah, I can overclock the heck out of this, as a general rule, my buyers don't. I don't actually ever hear about anyone overclocking these. So it's not worth the time, effort, and in some cases, most cases, shall we say, extra money. Because you can source, like, say, like, when you're looking at 6th gen, you can source 6700 non-Ks incredibly easily. 6700Ks are substantially more expensive. And if, like, let's say you're doing a non-overclockers build and you're doing, like, a 6700 non-K with, say, like, a GTX 980, the actual real performance difference just doesn't justify. I mean, if you get the chip, do it. Like, it is like 600 megahertz faster or something like that for the K chip. But if you don't actually have ready access to the K chip, don't worry about it. Okay, what are we doing next here? Let's do some more SATA plugs. So let's do. Do I have another black one? If I have another, oh, there we go. There's another black one. So let's do this. Another black one that goes to our 500. Let's run it the same way underneath here, and then run it around here. What did I do? Did I do the bottom one? Tell me I did the bottom one. Yes, I did. Okay, cool. So then run it through here, and okay, and then just run it right there. Boom, look at that. Okay. And then we just got to do one more. Let's see if I have another SATA in black. Kind of running out of SATAs. But let's see. We have here another SATA in black. So let's do that one. I think if I remember right, I originally tested this with this on the top. So let's. There we go. Okay. SATA cable in. Flip this over. And we run it once again. Let's actually do this. Let's run it over here just to keep it organized. Ooh, you know what I could do? Do that too. Have less visible cabling, even more so. Okay. And then run that around there. And bam! Look at that. Perfect. run SATA cables. Boom. Look at that. Okay, and then to hold these in place, put a zip tie there. And we are good to go. So assuming, that's a big assumption, but depending on how complicated the motherboard setup is, this could be as simple as just turn it on and all the drives pop up, or it could be more complicated and I may have to go in and do some drive configuration stuff in the BIOS. We'll see once I get the build done. I'm not going to show that on the video because this is not a complete project, but what this really is, I'm really just doing the build on video here. So okay, so let's put this on here. Okay. Ooh, dust and stuff on there. It's actually surprisingly difficult. Even a brand new case, you'd be surprised at how much dust there is on clinging to a brand new case in many situations. If it's been sitting around, even unused, it'll be fairly clean, but there will be dust on it. It's surprisingly difficult to completely de-dust one of these systems or one of these cases. Okay, so I think everything is the way I want it. Let's leave this all for now. Just hide that for the time being. Put that in there. And let's hide that too. Because on this one, I'm going to guess the buyer isn't going to upgrade storage because you've already got a 500 gig SSD, you got a 500 gig hard drive, and you have a 2 terabyte storage drive, which is really as ideal of a setup as you're going to get. So let's flip this back over. So it should be ready to power it on now. So let's see what we get. So we're going to plug it into my setup that I have over here. Get these out of the way. Let's put these back in. Any loose ones? Anybody loose? Let's get all this garbage out of the way so we can do some other stuff here. Okay, so let's take a look and see. So typically the configuration stuff will be related to Windows. So typically you'll see the issue that'll come up is you'll see all the drives in BIOS, but they won't recognize in Windows, and sometimes that'll be related to RAID configurations, AHCI configurations, stuff like that. So sometimes you do have to tweak with that, but then sometimes it just straight up works. You never know until it straight up works or straight up doesn't. All right, let's move my little table here a little bit. Get the camera a little closer. Okay. Actually, I'm going to point the camera at the screen here in a second. So, best case scenario, everything boots up, it's ready to go, and I don't have to configure anything. It's surprisingly often that occurs. Okay, what do we got? What am I missing? Mouse, keyboard, it's all connected. So, obviously we're going to want to put a fan on here sooner or later, but for now, it will be fine. So let's turn over to, actually let's move this over here. Come on. Okay, so let's zoom in. Should be able to see when it comes up. Okay, so let's switch this on. So, See what we get. Bam, look at that. So we're good to go. At least it's turning on anyway. Oops, that didn't do what I wanted. Let's see if it just works first, and then we'll screw with it a little more if we have to. So it is worth mentioning for people that aren't used to dealing with X99 platform setups. It's not doing what I want. Where is it? I guess we'll see in a second. I might have to restart this one. Come on. I got that far, so we're definitely not seriously defective. You can get to the Windows screen. Generally speaking, it's working. Let's do this first. So I can get it to go into BIOS. X99, for those who don't have a lot of experience with it, typically has a delay between when you turn it on and when you get BIOS. Can you give me BIOS? Does not want to give me BIOS from the keyboard. Sometimes that's a keyboard issue too. Let's see what we get. Okay, we're going into Windows? Okay, we're into Windows. Okay, so let's see what we get here. Drives. I think it might have worked. Okay, oh, nope, we got the 500. But the 2 terabyte was part of my RAID array though, so it's possible that it's not configured. So let's, disk management. Okay, so it's just not initialized. Okay, cool. So let's do GPT. Bam. Okay, new simple volume. I hate new volumes, and we'll leave it. Okay. And actually, you know what? I already had. Ooh, check it out. Let's see. See, okay, so we've got all three. So we got SSD, 500 gig, and our 2 terabytes. So we're good there. That all worked. And let's see what our thermals are running at. Curious. I may have to shut this down pretty quick. Oh, that's not bad. Look at that. Look at those temperatures on no fan. There's no fans in this thing right now. Let's see here. I don't want the board. I don't care about the board. I only care about GPU and CPU at the moment. I guess it's not going to show the GPU for now, just because of the fact that it's... Oh, okay, so we got the Extreme 6. Yeah, you're not going to get GPU temps until you have the video drivers installed, or a video driver installed. Okay, so it is an 850 EVO 500. Look at that! Real-time temperatures we're sitting at. Look at that! Let's see, zoom in so you can see that. That's passive. There's no fans in this system at this moment. None. That's pretty cool. It literally and figuratively. That's crazy. Okay, I'm gonna shut this off. I'm gonna put fans on it. We're gonna use the slowest, quietest fans we can though, because if it's sitting at that temperature, that's ambient. I think that's maybe 5 degrees above ambient in this room right now. So we're not going to need a whole lot of airflow to keep this cool. So I can definitely do this as a quiet build. Some chips are hot chips and you need more airflow to keep them at reasonable temperatures. But I'm going to bet even under a full load with a fairly light fan, this thing's going to be sitting well below critical. I mean, way multiple tens below. Tens of Celsius. It's probably 20, 30, something like that. I won't know until I actually put it under a load, but this is not going to be a difficult system to cool. So anyway, let's shut this down, and I'm going to call it a day on the build. So let's swing back to our build here. And this is our final zoom back out. So that goes over everything relevant. I'm going to add some fans and stuff, but it's not really relevant to my build styling or any of that. It's pretty much at this point a complete build, just a few little things, but it's pretty much done. I'm not going to do RGB or any lighting on this. The buyer wasn't picky about that kind of stuff, and to be honest, with an enclosed case with no glass or anything, it's really, I mean, I guess it'll come out the top, the vents and stuff, but this isn't, most of the builds I don't do fancy lighting. I'm not, if I get somebody that really needs it, I'll put it in, but I'm not really into that. I really like putting the time and effort into a clean build, into doing, you know, fancy video cards and stuff. So anyway, I'm gonna kill the camera here, and again, I hope everybody finds this interesting and informative, and thanks for watching the video.